There's a bias in the world that talkers are smarter and more powerful than listeners. A bias that couldn't be further from the truth. A few weeks ago, I sat down beside a stranger in a bar, and after we introduced ourselves, I asked him where he was from. And he said, Washington, D.C. And I said, oh really? I used to live in Washington, D.C. He then started talking. He talked for 30 minutes without stopping, and in all that time never asked me one question. He never even asked me where I was from or why I was living in Washington, D.C. Now, I'll agree that for an outside observer, he will no doubt look smart and powerful, in the same way fashion models look beautiful to magazine viewers. But just as fashion models look vulnerable and weak on closer inspection, so too do people who talk too much. In the end of this conversation, I know everything about him and he knows nothing about me. I know his strengths and weaknesses, and I know his weaknesses outweigh his strengths. And I also know that he is boring. All people who talk too much are boring because they don't listen. People who don't listen can't learn new things, so they end up going around in circles. To be fair, however, we are all bad listeners. Very bad listeners. In fact, most of us don't even know what listening is. People often mix up hearing and listening, but listening is a cognitive skill peculiar to humans and has 4 parts. Hear, interpret, evaluate, and react. For example, you hear a noise, interpret gunshot, evaluate danger, and react by jumping under the table. There are many reasons why we are bad listeners. Ignorance. We don't know what the person is talking about, so we don't listen to what they're saying. Arrogance. We think the other person is boring, so we switch off the machine. We are biased and prejudiced. If we don't like certain people or what they stand for, we will disregard everything they say. We are also prone to misinterpreting people who do not agree with us. Like light through a prism, their words bend into our already way of thinking. We filter out what we don't want to hear. When Barack Obama speaks, 50% of America will misinterpret his words. We are living in partisan times, and words that enter into the mind of a biased person will get twisted to support whatever that person understands to be true. A more subtle form of this is confirmation bias. We tend to listen to those people who support our already way of thinking, and we tend to ignore those who do not. Then there's the ego. The ego is easy to recognize. It is the voice yapping in your head, the same one that pulls you away from the proactive zone. The ego also stops you from listening. The voice in your head says, me, pay attention to me. Like the girl in the karaoke room singing away while our friends are buried in songbooks, obliviously. Another reason we don't listen is because we never learned. Amazingly, we spend 45% of our working lives listening to other people, yet we never learned how to do it. In school, we learn how to speak, we learn how to read, we learn how to write, but we never learned how to listen. Isn't that strange? We never learned how to listen because somehow we think that listening is not a learnable skill. Nothing could be further from the truth. When it comes to improving your mind, developing listening skills beats reading books hands down. For good listeners, life is a book full of signs and symbols that reveal the inner workings of the world. Encouraging a culture of listening in the workplace will save your company millions of dollars in money and time. Business leaders and managers who encourage debate, questions, clarification, feedback and summary will save themselves a lot of headache and heartache and extra work. Other things you can do is put rules on the wall. Take notes if you must, but keep them to a minimum. Be alert to central themes, not random facts. After a meeting, hold a listening critique. Don't react to emotionally charged words. Resist the urge to argue or judge until you've heard everything. And finally, listen with your eyes as well as your ears. Check if the body language is in sync with the words. Our ears tell us what people are saying. Our eyes tell us why they are saying what they're saying.